What's happening, y'all? This is Todd Wilson with another episode of Elevate Your Game. Today we have LA legend in our eyes for basketball, former college player, played pro for a little bit, yeah?
Yep.
Played pro and an NBA coach for the last 7 years. Am I counting right? Seven.
Yep.
Last 7 years,
Yes,
Mr. JD DuBois.
Man, appreciate you.
Welcome to the show. And I have
Appreciate
to
you.
mention as well, and the president of your organization or founder?
Yes, founder, president, the title isn't that important.
I love
but yes.
titles. We got to introduce this right.
Founder.
Everyone has a story, an amazing organization focused on the mental health of athletes, of everybody really, but of athletes in general. So welcome to the show.
Man, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. First off, man, I'm glad to be here. Love the work that you're doing. Just being a platform to educate, right? The more our young people, parents, coaches, athletes can have platforms that are educating and inspiring at the same time, I just think it allows to weed out people that might diverge from their path. And
Man.
great opportunity to be here, and hopefully I can steal something from you today and be a little bit better than I was when I got here.
No, I appreciate it. We're going to use that as a promo for this show.
Right.
So thank you. No residuals, you will get none, but hey, I appreciate that. We love to start this off. Your favorite hoop movie of all time and why?
Favorite hoop movie of all time? Love and Basketball.
Yeah.
Love and Basketball. One, I felt there was a time in life where I dated an athlete, and we all kind of had those moments of visualizing Monica and Quincy, and I just thought the storyline was amazing, the acting was amazing, and it's just a LA. I feel like that's a Hooper and LA classic.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever have that moment where you were dancing with one girl, but you was looking at the other girl across the room?
I haven't, but I have had the moment where someone thinks they can play you one-on-one for
They heart?
something or not, right? Whether it's winner gets the dinner for free, but nah. Overall, I thought it was a very well written movie for sure.
Absolutely, one of my favorites. My wife doesn't like that movie. I talk about it all the time. She said, "There's no way he wins the game and he still gets with her."
Right.
I was like, "All right, I can respect
She wasn't
that.
buying
I can
that,
respect that."
No doubt.
So, when did you fall in love with basketball?
Man, I don't know if I can pinpoint a moment, but I can pinpoint just the environment. My dad was a PE teacher for 25 plus years at Crozier Middle School in Inglewood. Anytime I was out of school, I was always going up to hang out with Pops. Two older brothers played. And honestly, over the course of my youth journey, starting with K&E Bulls, Coach Tiny, then Coach Chuck, basketball, mathematics, the environment that I was in at a really young age, those coaches instilled competition, but also joy. And I think just having great coaches, being in a great environment, starting at home, really allowed me over time to fall in love and then continue to fall in love with not just the sport, but the process of being successful in the sport.
Talk about having joy in basketball, man. I think that's snatched away from some of our youth today because of the pressure they feel from their parents, from the social media, their peers, whatever it is. Talk about that joy, like what brought that into the environment and how do you bring that into coaching now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so much of who I am today goes back to the household. Like my dad, even my mom, she wasn't a sports person in terms of a coach, but she loved going to games, having fun. Her vibe was never predicated on how well I played. My dad's vibe was never predicated on how well I played. It was, did you show up? Did you work hard? Did you try? Did you compete? Did you do what the coach asked? Things that you can sustain. Results, you don't control those. The process leading into the result, you can control. And honestly, just having great coaches. I knew it when I was in the environment, but the longer I was outside of the environment, I even think back to my middle school coaches, Coach Grand Prix, Coach Moon, and then Coach Russell specifically, female coach. And there's so much conversation around female coaches now, and I was always confused as to like how people didn't understand that doesn't male or female, they can coach at a high level. Because I played for a female at a young age, and it was some of the most fun, most competitive, most teaching that was being established in that environment. And I give her a lot of credit to just bringing that love, competition, and joy to the game of basketball to us at 7th, 8th grade.
Nice. And what age did you start taking the game serious? So you say you started off pretty young age in the gym. It sounds you had some amazing coaches. I mean, you named people who were legends in this LA scene for sure.
Yeah.
When did you start taking it to like serious, that next level?
Honestly, from the start, it was a combination of, I think it was just innate in me that if I was going to do it, I was going to do it the right way. And then again, I go back to the coach. I have to give the environment and the coaches really all of the credit to my success as a player and then now as a coach, because there was no option. If you show up and you compete, you're respectful, you work hard, and then the environments of our parents that, again, we look back on, the parents of all of the teams that I played on were all in unison with the coach. There was no, you're not playing and you go back to a parent, because the parents whose kids aren't playing and the parents whose kids are the stars, we all a family. And no one's complaining about one player getting the short end of the stick. And then I just try to utilize that as a coach. One, can you create an environment where the individual is enjoying the space? One, it's safe for them as a human. And then two, there's joy in the process of maximizing whatever potential they may have.
Absolutely. It seems like you approach the game from a real personal development standpoint, and it sounds like it was ingrained in you from your parents. What were those hard lessons they taught you growing up to where that's like, it's part of who you are? Like everything that you've spoken since even before we started this interview right now has been about just improving. So what are those characteristics or things that your parents instilled in you now that carry out today?
Yeah, one thing that, and my dad never really like said, hey, you have to do X, Y, and Z, but his day-to-day approach to just being present and valuing the opportunity of today, I think really transferred into me as an athlete, to where it's like, okay, yesterday, maybe I didn't play well. Yesterday, maybe I didn't play a lot, but today I have an opportunity to get better or get worse or stay the same. It's my choice. And I think his perspective of the value of the moment and the optimism that things will work out if you just take each present moment one day, one step at a time. And then my mom was just such a vibrant, hard worker. So even though she was a very meticulous, disciplined, hard-working woman, everything about her was vibrant. And to be able to blend the two of, my dad's more of a calm, relaxed, yoga type of guy, and my mom is a more vibrant, assertive, kind of moxie, super confident woman, and kind of those two blended together has brought me to where I am today.
Oh, that's awesome. It's a great mix. And
Man, no complaints.
like,
I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah, no,
For sure.
you hear a lot of people, and I think kids today, your traumas and how you act out and how you behave are so built on the example your parents are, not what they tell you and how they want you to behave, but how they actually behave, and recognizing those actions early help build who you are.
Absolutely. It's funny because there's a lot of conversation of skill development, and is skill something you can train? And a lot of the ecological dynamic theory is that skills emerge. So based off of the task, the constraint of what's happening, if I'm in the paint and there's a 7-footer that's coming over to help, the skill of me being able to get the ball a little bit higher is going to emerge because of the situation. Well, from a mental skill standpoint, if there's certain situations that you've had to overcome in life, there's a skill of optimism that I think I've grown because of situations that have emerged. Do I have this skill set if my upbringing is a little different? Maybe, but it probably isn't at the height that it is. But because I was afforded a lot of what some may deem difficult opportunities, where you have a choice of being pessimistic or optimistic, you get 20 of those situations in life. By the time you're in your 20s and 30s, the skill set of optimism is just going to emerge because of the environment and the situation.
100%. So for kids who are in an environment where it's negative,
Yep.
they don't have the mentors or the parents who are showing behaviors they know are going to make them successful. I think kids can recognize that at an early age, but they also have to be obedient to their parents and follow their parents. What advice would you give them to choose optimism, to have a different mindset than those that they have to follow right now?
Yeah, one, I would say give yourself grace. Like 10, 12, 13, 14, 35, 55. Like, it's hard being a human being. Like, that's just the reality of it. It's hard being human. Now you add traumatic experiences. Now you add lack of resources. Now you add toxic environment, like that's just another 45-pound weight that I could barely push one or two. Now you add 6 of them and you ask me to carry that around all day, that's going to be difficult. So one, identifying that is tough, giving yourself grace of saying, okay, I may not have all the skill sets, but can I start today and be a little bit more optimistic than I was yesterday? And honestly, a lot of that is easier said than done. That's why I think the therapy and the mindfulness space is so difficult, because everyone's situation is different.
Yeah.
Therapy isn't for everyone. Sometimes it's a simple journal entry, a walk around in the sun, and being around your friends, or going to the barbershop that allows you to be a little more optimistic. One, give yourself grace, and two, can you be mindful of your internal dialogue? Because a lot of times the situation is what it is, but our internal dialogue makes it 10 times worse. And it continues to replay and replay, and research will say the further we get from a situation, the more that story changes. That's why you get guys at the park who 20 years after high school, it's like, okay, they average 25. It's like, okay, you really average 11, but like over the course of time, like you change this story of how you went to the state championship, and it's like, no, you didn't even play. And the same thing happens emotionally from a traumatic standpoint, where a situation occurs and then we replay it, we add something, time goes by, we add something, 3-4 years down the line, it's like everyone hates me, X, Y, and Z. So giving ourselves grace, recognizing that life is literally just difficult being a human being. And then that third one, I think is extremely important as well.
No, absolutely. We talk about this positive self-talk a lot, right?
Yeah.
And what you say to yourself and the content that you consume. I tell these kids all the time, like Dylan knows, right? So we, on the way home, we listen to Eric Thomas or some random Earl Nightingale. Like, he's like, who is this dude? But he knows that it's good for him to listen. He tunes in and out. But like that content, that what you're putting in your head on a daily basis. And, you know, I think these kids, if we're the person they kind of look up to, or their trainer, their coach, and we have these opportunities to have, you know, just communication about life. Those are the things we should be showing them. Yeah, sometimes you let them take the aux and we listen to a song, but also it's a great time to mentor them and show them, hey, this is how you get mentally to the next level. Because where you want to go, all these kids want to go to the league, you've got to have mental toughness.
You bring up a great point. I think it's one of those things where anything that we want to anything we want to withdraw is going to be based off of what we deposit. So if I'm only depositing negativity, I'm only depositing pessimism, I'm only depositing things that I know are not optimal to who I want to be, when it's time to withdraw what I want, it just doesn't really add up. So how do we mirror what we want to be able to withdraw at some point when we need it, which is sometimes positivity, being present, stillness, calmness. If everything that we're depositing is the exact opposite, it's going to be a difficult situation when it's time to withdraw what's needed.
No, I love that. Yeah. I love that. It gives you a good visual of what you're investing into yourself. Yeah. So on to your journey. So played through middle school. When did you hit like the national AAU circuit, or did you go out and, you know, play the best of the best? And what was that journey like?
our probably 8 and under to 13U basketball mathematics with Coach Chuck, who's now coach at Fairfax. We were a small neighborhood team, but we competed at the national level. And the beauty of that environment was that it was such a development, X's and O's. Like, he literally 20 years ago was talking about basketball mathematics and analytics and angles and things that now is super popular in terms of conversation, but these were things that 9-10 years old we were being taught and ingrained into our brains, and competed at the national level. Around 8th grade, I played a year with P. Miller Ballers, which was a unique opportunity to play with DeMar and play with Brandon Jennings and Oscar Belfield and a bunch of other top players. And that was really my first opportunity to see what it's like to handle attention and handle media coverage. And it was a TV show on the team, and obviously having Lil Romeo at the time on the team and his dad coaching, there was just so much notoriety on the team. just gave me an insight on how star dynamics work, and then the importance of role players. And then after that in high school, I really thought I took a turn as a player and a person once I met Ty Lofton. LA Stars, again, was a national team, but a national team that was built off of a lot of local guys. Right. And that was really where I started to see in real life the impact of visualization, affirmations. Like he would have us in high school before games, like visualizing how we want to play. And this is 10, 15 years ago, a AAU coach doing these things.
Would he guide you through the visualization, or was kind of like, hey, think about what you need to do? Like, what was that setup like?
So it was more, we're going to take X amount of time. And so it was guided. It wasn't overly guided to where his voice is drowning out what we're trying to see. And then I remember these shirts like it was yesterday, I believe in myself. And that was like our team. And at the time, you can deem it corny or whatever the case may be, but if you saw the product of player that he's put out over the course of 2 decades, you recognize like Russell Westbrook played on that team, DeLon Wright played on that team for some time. The product that came from the organization, I felt, was his root of one, elite development. That was my first time really like working out, working on my game, 8th, 9th grade. And then the mental side of it, he was so ahead of the curve looking back on it. But I would say that middle school and that early high school is when I started to kind of take the training and development part of it serious, or just being introduced to it.
Yeah, and then you already have the work ethic and the want to go to the gym and work hard in that space. So it took you to that. So you played AAU Nationals in Orlando, and you guys played the Georgia Stars. No, who is it? Was it Georgia Stars then? Do you remember
they had
this
Willie
game?
Warren.
Yep, Alfred Romino.
Yep.
I was there at that game.
Really?
Yep. That was like when you said P. Miller Ballers, I was there at that game. My friend from high school, his dad was the coach of the Atlanta team. And because you had Anthony Story, right? Or was
Okay.
Right, was that his name?
On our team?
Or maybe he was on another team. I don't know. He had bounce. I don't know.
Looking back on who all was in that group of players, it was
like 5,
it was
7,
so much
6, 7
talent.
pros.
Like it was so much
Crazy.
talent, and it's funny, you look at the NBA now and the stars and do they get along and whatever the case may be. We had no ego, nothing. Well, I wasn't a star, so I was a role player. But those top of the class guys were high level, and the competition was high level. That's crazy that you were there. Those environments were
amazing.
Were crazy, and I thought that prepared me for the Westchester days.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about Ed Azam and the Westchester machine that was rolling in like all for the last 40 years, something crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you start taking your development seriously. Man, the coaches that you have were really before their time. You're getting stuff that we literally are teaching today and try to focus on for coaches. You're getting that at an early age. You step into high school. Did you have a rude awakening? What was it like playing at Westchester?
Yeah, so even before I went to Westchester, I vividly remember a lot of the middle school coaches. My home school would have been Morningside, where I should have went to Monroe. Morningside was connected. Everybody was saying, don't go there. They recruit. Every year they're bringing in new players. It's going to be hard for you to play. You could list
sounds like all the high schools now out here, but go ahead. Sorry.
Right, yeah. And in my head, I never, not even from an arrogant or like I thought I was super good, but that was never the mindset. On the flip side, it was compete at the highest level, play on the biggest stage, and the cream will rise to the top. So it doesn't matter what, the same as players get drafted. Oh, you're going to this team. It's like, I don't care where a person next to you is drafted. During training camp, during September workouts, during preseason, you're on the floor. You have the opportunity to take or get some minutes. So that was my mindset in high school. Keep getting better every day, compete at a high level. Played JV my freshman year. And it was crazy because I would practice with varsity some. And then the city championship, were we losing at half? Freshmen usually don't play at Westchester. At this point, no freshmen have played really, except one or two in the 2 decades. And city championship, I don't know why he gave me the opportunity. I remember telling DeWitt, the assistant, either the day before, like, look, if you put me in the game, I will be ready to play. I will be ready to play. And I don't know why he put me in, made a couple shots. I think it was the end of the half. We ended up winning the city championship, and the rest of my high school career just kind of continued to evolve because I just felt, one, I embraced the mental side of it. Like I was as mentally present and tough as you could find, and we just had a hell of a team.
So who'd you play with?
So freshman year was Amir Johnson, Marcus Johnson. Who else was on that team? Joey. I think that team had 8 Division I players: Gerard, D1, Jarrell, Ray, Ken. Like, it was a bunch of guys. Then sophomore year, Dwayne Poley. I don't know if that was sophomore or junior year. Dane Suttle, Isaiah, Tree. It may not have been the big names as my kind of career went on, but every year we were competing for a city championship. And again, that foundation of defense wins championships, execute at a high level down the stretch, being able to be in those environments for 4 years after leaving middle school where that was the environment and the standard, all of that has helped me as a coach. Because I remember Coach Stevenson, who was my dad's coworker, another PE teacher, we'll watch the Laker game often. Fourth quarter, you don't turn the ball over, don't miss free throws. That's one thing he would always tell me, young fella, fourth quarter, can't turn the ball over, can't miss free throws. Something as simple as that, being ingrained in, I don't know, at the time I was 9, 10, I didn't know really what he was talking about, but all of those things, when you fast forward, impact today for sure.
And how you accepted accountability. How, at the level you coach at, how do you get these NBA players to accept accountability? Because I think if we talk about those players at that level, some of these high schoolers and college players understand accountability. I think there's a lot of, the coach not liking them or not allowing the process to happen for them to develop, and them understanding that, hey, if you just get held accountable, things will eventually work out for you. You can't keep running from this accountability. So.
Yeah, one, again, a lot of stuff is going to circle back to my pops. Accountability was kind of the only option. And it takes practice. It's not I'm not going to sit here and act like I just woke up and all of a sudden I'm seeking opportunity to say, hey, that was my fault, I got to be better. Like, that wasn't natural. But the environments that I was in, the coaches that I played for instilled accountability. And then once you get to the NBA level, I would say for the most part, players want to be held accountable. But now you're meeting a 20-year-old that has 10 years of experience of what accountability looks and sounds like. So how I voice he should be accountable may be a different tone than what he's used to. So sometimes we can take it as, okay, this player doesn't want to be coached. He doesn't want to be held accountable. When in reality, it might just be my tone of voice, how I come at him. Some players don't, whether we feel it's soft or it's not. Some players don't want to be addressed in a certain manner in front of the team. Or if you're going to do that, make sure that you're proactive and not reactive with a genuine relationship. And so I think as a baseline, players want to be held accountable. You just have to make sure it makes sense to them. Like, holding a player accountable to something that they don't really understand or comprehend is going to be difficult regardless of the level.
Yeah. And I think it's in the same vein as like holding them accountable to something they don't know. How many players are you actually teaching basketball to in the NBA? I think there's a misconception about that too. It's like, oh, once they go to the NBA, it's because they know basketball. But I know from my experiences doing pre-draft processes, like they're not learning anything in college. So I know y'all got to teach them in the NBA. And what can we do as coaches now to help prepare them for whatever level they go to better, do you think?
Yeah, I would say one, for me, I've learned just as much as I've taught, if not learned more from players than I've given. I think, one, they're on the floor, they're in the situations, they're seeing it in real time. So a lot of times the feedback allows me to have the perspective of what's needed to teach. I think the first step is, can we spend a little more time observing first and then teaching? In general, I think sometimes we step into a space and we want to fix, we want to clean up, organize this over there. And when we do that, sometimes it's like, hey, towels go in that cabinet. But I was so eager to teach, I was so eager to give, that now I've wasted time when I could have just said, okay, let me observe the environment first and then provide what I feel they need. So to answer the question in terms of teaching and what we can do at the youth level, I think one, can we alter and be aware of our perspective and perception of the situation? I think more than a basketball or making decisions and being able to pass, dribble, and shoot and guard your position, if we just put that on the shelf, because that's an obvious, our perspective of coach don't like me, coach isn't playing me for X, Y, and Z, coach is playing favorites, the ref is this. Can we alter that? Because you can't control that, and you're living on something that one is in the past, and then the perception of what an opportunity looks like. Opportunity isn't just I shoot every time, I'm praised for everything I do well. To me, that would be the starting point from a youth sports standpoint. Change your perception of situations and change your perspective, because if you change those, now you took that sponge and you able to wring it out, and anywhere you go, you hand someone a dried sponge, you're gonna be able to soak up as much as you can. Doesn't matter what I do, if your sponge remains filled, I don't care where you go, there's really not much that you'll be able to extract from those different environments.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. You need your own show. I just want to encourage you.
Appreciate you.
No, this is really, really good stuff. High school. So going through high school, amazing teams, amazing. This is when the city league is popping. I'm sure you playing. This is 2000. You graduated 2010.
2008.
2008. Okay. Oh wait.
8. Yep.
So this is the Jordan Farmar, Nick Young.
So this is
they graduated
right,
04. So
yeah, this
Drew
right after
Holiday,
that. Yeah,
Larry
this
Drew.
Holiday, Larry Drew. Spencer was a little
Spencer, yeah.
younger. DeMar, Malcolm Lee. There was so much talent. Russ was at Lusinger. Donnell was at Lusinger. Justin Cobbs at Bishop Montgomery. It was so much competition, and it's really what I miss about. I don't watch a lot of youth sports, but when I do, I just feel I hear about the best players, and I never really see them playing against each other. And when they do, it doesn't feel like.
It was different back then. It was different back then.
Yeah, like it was okay.
It was true rivalries.
Like I know Chase Stanback is a high level player. I know Ronaldo Sidney is a potential future pro. But there is no moment in this game where you would even think that I know them or I think highly of them. You would never be able to see that. And I'm not saying that that's right or that's wrong, because competition reforms and the generation before us saw it differently. But I do miss the competition of the city section. And I do feel Coach DeWitt at Westchester has, Trevor Son is there now. They've got a couple new pieces. I was just over there the other day. And I'm excited to see where they can take it. But I definitely do miss just those wall-to-wall packed Westchester Fairfax rivalry games. And was it my junior year? I think we had to play at LMU because they had gotten too big. But no, that matchup was amazing.
Not bad.
It was amazing for
Not
sure.
bad. No, that high competitive ball in high school. I think you get it in AAU now. When you play high levels at AAU, you're playing the best in the country. And that's where you see that at, versus in high school now where, you have to wait to the playoffs to get those real battles.
Real clash. Yeah.
When it was like almost every game, you know, and
For sure.
people put on the brakes now a little bit too. Like, nah, I'm gonna smack you by 60 if I'm 60 points better than you.
Sure.
Like that mindset, even from coaches, has changed.
Changed a little bit.
Nah, competition needs to be competition because I've worked hard at this game. That's my thought process on that.
Absolutely.
No friendly rules and all that kind of stuff. All right, so college.
Yeah.
So what was that recruitment process like? And you landed to stay in LA, right?
Yeah.
LMU.
Yeah, so wasn't highly recruited. Not saying I should have been, but that's just what it was. I actually signed to SMU. The coach that recruited me, Coach Irvin, left, and it was a whole like legal process of me getting out of my letter of intent. It wasn't okay, he's not going there, I want to go somewhere else. It was a whole like, I think we had to get a lawyer because the coach didn't want to let me out. Once I got over that, Coach Bill Bano was at LMU, recruited me. It was a fairly quick process, and I just loved everything about the university. The campus is beautiful, small, intimate class sizes. With no football team, there was more attention on the basketball team, opportunity to improve because we weren't that good the year before, and then my freshman year we were even worse. But just the opportunity to start fresh, be home was an awesome opportunity. Then I spent most of my time there playing under Coach Max Good, who again another great coach, great teacher, basketball savant. But it was amazing. We won, was it 6 games my freshman year? 6 or 8 games. It was awful. But
you dropped 36 in the game, though.
I did.
Freshman,
I
I
always
remember that.
joke with players about like who you think in this gym has the highest career high as a freshman, and it's usually me. I think it was respectfully it was 39, I think, but it was a fun year, man. Just having the opportunity to. I didn't really play point guard per se in high school. It was just we usually had 3 point guards most time.
But you started at point guard in college.
I did.
People, this happens. Your kid does not have to play point guard in high school to play point guard in college.
Yes.
A coach will recognize that because point guard is more about your attitude, personality, and your ability, right, than your ability. But go ahead. I digress.
And the way that the game is going, be a good decision maker. Have understanding of space. Have understanding of, perception of how fast is he shifted, how open is he, how large is this driving gap, what happened to play before, who scored twice in a row, all right, they're on an 8-0 run, we're on the 10-0 run. Like, be aware of those things and teach the player those things, because it doesn't matter what position a player is in. If I understand space and I understand action, I'm gonna be pretty successful, regardless of where I land position wise.
Right. So this is the first time you were in a losing situation at LMU, probably.
Yes.
Almost your whole life. So was that, how was that experience for you? And then how did you overcome that over you were there 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Over your 4 years.
3 there and 1 at Utah.
Okay.
How was it? Looking back on it, I think that was a prime example of what happens when you just take one day at a time. Because it didn't feel like we were losing that many games, because every day the coaching staff showed up with energy, effort, and an urgency to improve. Our team, the players were competing at a high level every day in practice. And so the goal was just to keep getting better. Obviously, you would have liked to win more games, but I felt because from the top down, from the coaching staff to the players, the focus was improvement. Not that it was easier, but it was a little easier to deal with because you weren't so worried about, dang, we just lost 8 out of 9. It was like, no, we have an opportunity to improve today and a chance to win tomorrow, that I thought helped us get through those, which I thought helped me when I was in Detroit coaching and we were in a rebuild, because it was the same. I remember as a player knowing that the team wasn't that good, knowing that we were losing a lot of games, but feeling the optimism because Coach Farr, every day, his energy was the same. Every day he was pouring into us. And that was the same mindset that I took to Detroit once the organization kind of shifted to being a more rebuild or restore situation. Was super helpful for me.
Absolutely. And then, so did you guys start winning in college? How did that go?
Yes. So first year we struggled. Second year we got better. And I think my third year we had won the most games they had won there in a really long time. And it was good to just see that incremental growth.
Yes.
Just slowly but surely get a little bit better. We got some guys healthy. We built a little cohesion within our team. And if we hadn't had a couple of injuries, I thought we could have even been better. But kudos to a lot of the guys that I played with for just continuing to improve. over the course of our college careers, and then our coaching staff just bringing in good recruits, keeping that same kind of cohesive energy. But no, we finished, I think we did the CBI tournament. There was this second tier under the
NIT, the CBI.
NIT tournament, that I think we played my last year. Got to the semifinals. I think we beat Dame in the quarterfinals. And that's when I knew, like, it's levels. You kind of always know, but some certain matchups, it's like, I'm playing well, but, like, this is too easy for this dude. And I'm trying. I'm like, I think it was to send it to overtime. He made, like, the classic pound dribble. And I said, damn, that was from hella far. But
it was Dame.
Obvious reasons. You look back and you say, like, all right, if anybody was going to do that, I'm going to give it to a future Hall of Famer.
These kids get on me for getting crossed by Darius Garland in a workout. It was before he even started. They get on me all like, oh, DG was crossing. I'm like, man, that's an all-star NBA guard. I'll get crossed by him. You can't do it. You can't cross me. So let's get on the court and talk about that. But I always like to say that if people put buckets on me, they play in the NBA. I'm not in the NBA. So
and you're a defender. So if you're a good defender, you're going to get crossed. If you're a shot blocker, you're going to get dunked on.
Absolutely.
It's going to happen.
100%. And I wanted to talk about how the team got better because you guys focus on that daily improvement. That is one of the biggest things I discuss with kids all the time is, hey, it's about what you do in your day, how you schedule your day, your time management, and your ability to do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. Even, I want you to be 100%, but we all know we can't do everything 100% every single day. But you are disciplined enough to do the action every day, and that builds over time to see improvement. And you did it in a group of people who were together. You had a team around you that was all focused on the same thing. It goes back to what you were saying before, the environment you were in. And to keep your environment clean, away from toxic people. And unfortunately, sometimes those toxic people are your family nowadays. And being able to navigate that and speak what you want into existence and create that for yourself is so important nowadays because we all have access to the trainers. We all have access to, all these things that we could just YouTube and Google. But the part I think people are missing is this mental aspect and the discipline aspect with your character and all those things. And so I think it's great that you hit this point where it's like winner, 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 winner. Oh man, loser, what people see on surface. Yeah. But it puts you in a position to just kind of restart what you did when you were younger. It's like, oh, we just got to work and get better one day at a time.
And I think it's important that the same process that led to the result of winning, which is a result that we don't control, is the same process. The result just didn't happen. So it's still be prepared, be disciplined, be collaborative with your teammates, compete at a high level. Those things this is how we operate. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. One person wins the championship. There's one team winning. Everybody else is a loser, quote unquote. But if your process is solid and your foundation is solid, over the course of time, success will be in your favor. And if you don't get the result that you think you want, you're improving. As opposed to sometimes if you're only focused on result, you'll kind of do anything, even if it's a shortcut, just to get that result. And then at some point, you're going to meet someone whose process and preparation has been at a high level, and then you'll nosedive from that pedestal that has no foundation or has no structure. But to your point, I think that consistent approach is everything.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So finishing up college, you go to Utah.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that transition to Utah and playing as your grad year, or you had an injury, right?
Yeah, grad transfer. So transferred to University of Utah, Coach Sloak, Coach Tommy, Andy, and then Coach K was the head coach. 1 year.
Were you there at the same time as Chris Hines?
He was right before me.
Okay, gotcha.
He was right before me. First time ever in Utah, I think. Unbelievable experience. The community, the people around the university, the actual university, the coaching staff, our team. It was everything I could have asked for. But it wasn't just a smooth sailing year. It ended up being a great year for me, and like anything, there's gonna be some adversity. I don't care what you do, at what level, adversity is on its way. And because we know adversity usually breeds improvement, we should be seeking, like, where is the adversity? How can I find it? How quick can it come? Especially when we know anytime there was adversity and we got over it, you were better, stronger.
Yeah.
And that happened that year. There was moments where I think I was out of the starting lineup a couple games, and you have a choice. Coach's fault, he's tripping, I should be doing this, or buckle down on your process, buckle down on your principles, and then things got a little rocky for a couple games, and then they slowly picked back up. But I thought I built great relationships with the guys that I played with in that community, and that's really when I started implementing Everyone Has a Story. It was right after kind of that Utah season, because there was a concert series, I think it's called Twilight Series, that was downtown Salt Lake. And my first summer there, we went to the concert. It was nice. The next day we went to eat, same area, but now there's no stage, there's nothing. It's just an empty park. And there's homeless people everywhere, all around. And I asked someone who had been there, I said, well, where? Because during the concert, I didn't see any of these people. And they just educated me on the homeless struggle in Salt Lake City. And that's where we kind of started doing, whether it was winter drives, where we try to get donated jackets, gloves, heating packs, food, just because it's like anywhere that you work, play, live, how do you make that space better when you leave it than when you got it? And not saying we changed the world while we were there, but pouring into the environment. How do you pour into the soil that ultimately you want to grow from? It's hard to feel that you're going to grow from soil that you don't pour into or do anything for. You just want to stand on it and walk on it. And that was when we really first started engaging with this Everyone Has a Story platform.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was birthed while you were playing still, and
Yes.
just being in an environment that needed something that you could provide, and taking off from there. And wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think back of how we started with a couple people putting a couple dollars together, getting peanut butter and jelly and bread in the dorms, making sandwiches, and then just going out and not even just handing out the food, but having conversation. And it's a very inspiring opportunity to speak to people that society may deem one way, and then they give you more wisdom than any college professor or whoever we feel is a role model can give you, and they live on the corner.
Everyone has a story, what the organization is about, and you just talked about how it started, so just more about the organization so people can have
so
idea.
Everyone Has a Story. It's a nonprofit I started close to a decade ago, and our foundation is really in psychoeducation, collaborating between the community and clinicians, and really trying to normalize the conversation around mental wellness, mental health, self-care, psychoeducation, because in a lot of the Black and brown communities, the conversations just aren't happening. And so how can we create environments where, one, we can educate people that, okay, maybe you don't have the resources of a therapist, but when you think about it, every time we go to the barbershop, every time we go get our hair done, every time we go into any community space, that's a version of group therapy. That's a version of therapy.
Yeah.
These individuals may not call themselves therapists, but that 30 minutes that takes you to get your hair cut, and your barber's like, man, young fella, how you doing? Like, my barbershop was the first group therapy I ever had. Like, Mr. Eric had a barbershop in Inglewood, and this barber is from one hood, this barber is another hood, this barber is more religious, homeless guys sitting here, all different backgrounds, but you got city council coming to get a haircut, you got professional athletes getting haircuts, you got teachers getting haircuts, and everyone is talking about how's their day, how's their kids, what's the struggle in the community, and just having the environment awareness of the power of a safe space. And that's really what we want to be. We want to be an organization that you feel when you engage with us, you walk into your childhood hair salon and you left out feeling better about yourself and more optimistic that, you know what, everything's going to be all right if I just keep taking it one step at a time. And that's really the ultimate goal of the organization. And we're continuing to build out our Right Conversation panel series, which we've done at All-Star Weekend. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're looking to continue to just build, get better, improve as the years go on.
No, I think we need that. I think we need that for our student athletes specifically and the things that they deal with. So coming from somebody who's a hooper, who's a coach, and what you're doing with that organization and the platform that you have, I think will have deep impact and it's going to catch fire because it's the conversation that we all need to be having, you know, and hearing everyone's story. So thank you for doing that. And I'm a big fan of it and just following what you do. And in your limited amount of time, I don't know if y'all know this, NBA coaches don't have lives. Like when during the season, they have lives, but they don't. This man is doing his master's degree and running a nonprofit organization at the same time. Coaching NBA team is amazing, man. So thank you for your commitment to people. That's all this is your commitment to people. So
I appreciate it. I'm a firm believer. You got to lift as you climb. I don't care how high you're going, where you're going. If you're not lifting as you climb, as you're climbing, as Rachel would say, you're not doing it right. And the benefit for me coaching in this league is you get guys like DeMar, Fred, you get Derrick Rose in Detroit, Russ when I first got here with the Lakers, but we've obviously had a long relationship. You get Bron, just to name a few. You look at the schedule of being a superstar athlete, and the things that they are also able to do in their communities. It's like, how am I not going to pour into my community when Russ just built the entire school, Bron just built the entire school and housing, D Rose does so many things in his community back in Chicago, internationally. He doesn't talk about it publicly. Our organization wouldn't be where it's at without Derrick Rose. His support, his commitment to just the conversations while we were together in Detroit, his mind, his love for people and for the betterment of humanity, and he wants no attention for it. He doesn't talk about it publicly. He just does the work. Russ, the work that he's done, he just does the work. Fred, back in his hometown, DeMar, the things that he's doing in mental health and wellness, and I can name 1,000 players who I've had the opportunity to work with or coach. If they're able to do it with the things that they have going on, there's no excuse.
Love that. Love that. And how can we as a community support what you're doing? You know, me just being in the Valley area, like how can I, get in front of whatever and send your message out and what you're doing? How can we help?
Well, I'm gonna go. This the camera? This the one?
Yeah, talk to him.
So as a kind of unemployed founder of an organization, funding is so important. So if you feel that this is a topic or something that is important for the community, being in the nonprofit space on a serious note is something that is really rooted on funding. We are as good as the resources that we can provide. And whether it's our organization or any organization, I think having an understanding of any community-based group that's on the ground needs more support than you realize. And we're a community-based group. Any collaboration, partnership, but honestly, a lot of the things that we could utilize from an organizational standpoint is more financial to allow us to continue to keep our feet on the ground and serve the communities that we're from.
Amen. Yeah, thank you. All right. We'll have the links and everything in this video, y'all. So y'all look out for that for sure.
Not unemployed for long though. So.
All right. So transitioning from college, how long then you went to go play pro? How long did you play pro? What was that experience like?
Man, it was amazing. I grew as a man. 3 years, first year in Frankfurt, Germany. Again, everything leading into my coaching career, I look back and I say, I had unbelievable coaches. The German national team currently, was my first coach in Germany.
Wow.
In Frankfurt, Gordy. Unbelievable teacher, Klaus the assistant. Unbelievable developer, X's and O's, execution, time, score, situation, you name it, anything that you deem as what checks the box of a great coach, I got it right away. Then I went to Russia, and that's where I thought I really grew as a human. First week I'm there, the one American on the team, they let go, so it was just me. Didn't really speak English past like, hey, what's up, baseline, for 5 months. It was go to practice, sit in the locker room like this, wait till it's time to go out, work out before practice, and go home. Snowed almost every day.
Ugh.
I went out to eat one time, and the look that I got from the individuals in this particular place, how respectfully, I didn't go out to eat again. I'll just say that. And it was a lot of alone time, a lot of isolation, a lot of like self-discovery of like, who are you? Like, what do you value? What is important to you? Why are you playing this game? What does this game mean to you? And I loved it for that reason. Because it allowed me to say like, okay, one, there are so many different cultures and environments around the world. And just because this space is different doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just different.
Yeah.
And embrace the differences that happen across the world. And then my last year I was in Cyprus. Best season I thought as a pro. We won the cup. We lost in the finals. And then that off season I was like, I think it was a Friday. I was potentially going to sign somewhere that next week. And I was one of those guys that no one thought I would stop playing. How I approached the game, it was like, all right, he's going to try to play till he's 50. And I woke up one day and I was just like, I'm done. No injury, wasn't a lack of opportunity. It wasn't I should have been this. It was like, no, the height of whatever career was. And I just felt like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And then the rest is history, and it was probably the best and biggest decision I've made up until the decision I made a couple years ago. But that was a monumental time of pulling the cord. I think sometimes you can, one more season, and I personally, there's a lot of guys, not counting nobody's pockets, they make a great living, that's great for them.
Yeah.
I really wasn't making enough money to feel like I'm leaving this big old bag of money. And for some reason, I just felt it was time. I didn't think it through. It was
Just literally woke up and felt it.
Literally woke up one day and I was just like, making a little bit of money, pouring it right back into trying to train in the summer to go make a little bit more. I've experienced it. I loved it. I had a chance to play well. I'm healthy. Let's see what's next. Best decision I think I made as a player was to stop playing.
Yeah, no, it's good that you went out on your own terms and you got to experience a bit of everything.
Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of players have that, and so
I'm grateful for that.
Probably that isolation, that time with yourself to really reflect on who you've become through that process and what basketball did for you.
Absolutely.
You know, like having those moments. So even if you know, for the people out there who don't have that moments, I think it's important to take a week off and really diffuse and reflect on your season. I'm talking more like high school kids even. Like really reflect on your season and where you are and your love for the game and what you're willing to sacrifice and give up into, you know, all those types of things.
Absolutely. And to kind of pivot back to what we talked about with thoughts for our youth, diversify your outlets. Don't let the sport be the only outlet of emotion or energy, because at some point you're not going to be able to play that sport. And you're still going to have things that you need to release and have an outlet. So I think the earlier people, period, but athletes specifically can diversify those outlets, because you don't want a toolkit that only has a screwdriver. Screwdriver is amazing. You can do a lot of things with a screwdriver. But at some point, you're going to need some other tool.
Yeah.
And I think if parents and youth athletes can really understand that if I can diversify my outlet of energy and emotion, it allows me to weather the storm when the one outlet may not pay off how I'm used to it. Because it's kind of an addictive feeling to have some trauma and I work really hard and I get good and I'm scoring 30 and everybody's praising me. Like, that's an addicting relationship. But then if I get hurt and I can't pour into the sport and I have the same trauma, I have these same experiences that I'm trying to get off my chest, and I don't have any other tools, that's when I think it makes it difficult for the athlete post-career, during injury, trades, when they're not playing the same. But if we can kind of introduce different skill sets at a youth level, by the time I'm 15, 20, 25, it's like, okay, I have a couple of different things that just on a day-to-day basis I can.
Can you give examples of the outlets? Because you say that, and I think these kids are thinking about music, girls, video games, which isn't bad, but I know these are the ones they go through, and maybe even drugs and alcohol. And so, which those video games isn't a bad one, I don't think. The other ones can be distractions as well on your journey. So what other outlets do you consider for an athlete?
Yeah, so definitely the second part, the drugs, alcohol, that space, probably not ideal, obviously. The music, the art, the creative spaces are always good. Yoga, just something as simple as journaling. Like, all right, how can I express how I feel? Because basketball is an expression for a lot of people. Okay, if I have another outlet to just express, and it doesn't mean it's going to change. Situation may not change. It may be the same thing tomorrow, but at least I had an opportunity to get out how I feel about it. What I can't control, okay, what I can't control, all right, how I want to move forward, cool. Taking a walk, getting some sunlight, environment, being aware, okay, what impacts how I feel about the situation, my environment, all right, who's around, what do they talk about on a day-to-day basis, what is their energy like? All of those factors you may not be able to control, but the ones that you can control, it's like, all right, I can control if I journal. That doesn't take too long. I can just kind of hash out, because a lot of times we're in our head, we're overthinking, we're anxious about what may happen, or we're feeling a little bit depressed based off of the past, which I'll segue. Anxiety is ruminating about what may happen. So I'm overly thinking about what might happen next. Depression is I'm overly ruminating of something that already happened. So this happened 5 years ago and I'm just super like, And so if we can find any outlet that brings us to be more present, the more of those, and sometimes it's just one. Sometimes it may be a coloring book where it just allows me to be in this moment. Sometimes it's breathing exercises, the power of the breath. All right, if I can be present, then that means I'm less likely to worry about what's about to happen, and I'm less likely to be focused on what's already happened. And that all may change in 5 years. You may want a new one, and that's okay. But I think the process of finding them, even in that search, is healthy.
That's good. I've never heard depression and anxiety explained like that. I think it's very important for people to understand. Like, I'm feeling depressed or sad. Like, okay, why? What event happened exactly? And to work through that and find, hey, how do I improve today? And being in that moment, that's, man.
Nah,
I can't wait till when you putting your book out, man.
Right, nah,
man, come on.
The book is on the way. Nah.
All right, bet.
It's crazy because having 4 years in Detroit with Dr. Corey Yeager, who was the psychotherapist for the team, we literally were like this every day, talking about life, talking about athletes, talking about how can we allow, or how can we approach the athlete holistically? How can we improve the man and the player at the same time? Because you know that if I can impact the human and the athlete, long after I'm coaching this player, he's going to be much better off. And those were conversations that we would always have of how can we reframe the thought process of certain athletes so that they can manage all of the things that they're going through. Because, okay, yeah, money aside, these guys deal with a lot of stuff. They got a lot on their plate. And I just want to be as equipped as possible to manage both late game execution to help them win a game offensively or defensively, and family relationship,
Yes.
personal dynamics, because they're both connected to that human being.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you talk about coaching. So how retired? You woke up one day and retired. How'd you transition into coaching? Your first job was with the Raptors in the NBA. Was there anything before that? Was that transition?
Yeah, so my AAU coach, Ty Lofton, gave me the opportunity in Vegas one summer to coach. Actually, he didn't give me the opportunity. I was assistant coach. He got ejected. So then I had to coach. So I don't know, maybe he did it on purpose to give me the opportunity, but I coached 2 games, and I just liked being able to encourage and inspire. That was my first feeling of like, okay, how can I maximize every single player on this roster's ability, and how can I inspire them to have the confidence to go execute at the highest level? That was my start. Really, it started with DeLon. He gave me an opportunity to work with him during the summer, during the year. I would go back and forth from Utah to Toronto. Utah, there was Kyle Kuzma, Jakob was there, Brandon Taylor, Dakari, just guys that I built a relationship with while I was playing. And I just wanted to find ways to pour into the game. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with athletes. At first, I really didn't want to coach because I felt as a coach you couldn't control the type of player you worked with. But as a private trainer, you can, all right, if you don't fit the structure in which I think you should fit, then I won't work with you. But God had other plans. And Coach Casey, man, he gave me my first opportunity, saw me working with DeLon. We started to build just a relationship of him getting to know me and who's working with his player. And then me also just trying to learn. How can I be better to help the players that I'm working with? And from there, the rest is history. Spent like that first year in Toronto back and forth, and then that second year I was officially on staff, just more in a development, assistant player development role. But I loved it.
Wow, happened pretty quick. Most people gotta, have a little bit of grind. You had the resume. I think more than anything, you had the leadership skill and that ability to, be in those environments and know what was needed, as well as you just learning, right? Coming in, what's the word I'm looking for? Just not being, well, I always do this. Help me here, Karina, when you're a threat. Not being a threat, there you go. Not being a threat and partnering with the coach as a developer. Now, let me ask you this. Are you working towards being a head coach in the NBA at this point? Where is this leading you all to? And then we could talk about that journey to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, then and now the goal has always been maximize the potential. Grow and develop as much as you can. Pour into the sport as much as you can. And then wherever you're supposed to be, you'll be. Obviously, I want to put myself in position to where my skill set is aligned with that of someone that an organization feels can lead their team. But that's not the end all be all. Because if I become a head coach, I'm not going to be satisfied with, I'm a head coach now, I'm good. It's like, no, if my potential is to win a championship as a head coach, I want to get to that. Yeah. If my highest potential is being an elite lead assistant to a head coach that wins 5 championships, let it be that. But maximizing my potential and making sure I squeeze out and extract every ounce of who I can be as a coach and a leader as possible, and whatever title or position that looks like, I'll be fine with it.
Awesome. Now that we know where we're trying to get to, that just maximizing your potential, let's talk about that journey. And starting in Toronto, and then you followed Dwayne Casey to Detroit, right?
To Detroit, yeah.
So that's where you got your real coaching experience, right? Where it kind of transitioned to on the bench and those types of things. So what was that experience like?
It was crazy because the staff and the environment that Case had in Toronto, I felt like was like coaching PhD. Every coaches meeting, every car ride to go work out, situations, execution, being able to watch playoff prep at the highest level right away, I felt was a crash course. And having relationships with the best players on the team early, obviously growing up with DeMar helped just in terms of I was comfortable in the space. And then the players that we had on that roster gave me an opportunity to help. They were obviously really good already, and whatever I could do to enhance, even if it was just a little bit, I was appreciative of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Detroit started off. This is when they just got Blake Griffin,
Yep.
and that transition happened where they were still trying to compete for, start to compete and be a playoff team. What was that experience like, being on that level of, hey, let's go compete for a championship, and then going into, hey, we're in rebuild mode?
Yeah, I thought it was, looking back, a firm example of why your day-to-day is important. When Coach Casey was winning 60 games in Toronto and when we were a lottery team in Detroit, he was no different. Every day he showed up prepared. Every day he expected the staff to be the same. Every day he poured into the players, whether they had lost 8 in a row or we had won 12 in a row in Toronto. So watching a leader who was my first coach working for approach it every day, I felt confirmed how I already feel and think. But having the opportunity to work alongside somebody like Blake Griffin, just a person, man, that dude is, one, hilarious.
Yes.
Obviously he's done a couple skits, but just as a day-to-day person, high level.
Yeah.
High level.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is it about coaching in the NBA that the people should know that they don't know?
It's really hard to see the film when you're trying to challenge a call. We do not get the same feed that you get when you're watching at home. So you think like, why did they do that? Well, it's like, this feed isn't the same one that you're watching at home. And a lot of times you'll notice that teams will look at the in-arena board because that a lot of times is a different feed than what you get. But
So
yeah,
saying that it's about to be a challenge is really tough for you to call as a team. Like, it's
but on another note, that was more. What was the question again? What do I think people should know?
Yes, about coaching that they don't know about being an NBA coach.
I think it would probably be the same as any leadership role at any level. Is each team is different, each player is different. Anytime you have a perception of someone that you don't know, you're probably wrong. And that players want to be coached. Like, they want to be coached. Now, you may have to learn the language that they speak to get them to understand what you're saying so that you can coach them more. But players at the highest level want to be coached if they feel you can help them improve. Just like any level. Certain high school teams, you go in a locker room and you dissect their culture and you say, man, I love to coach that group. Other high school teams, you go in that locker room, you dissect the culture and you say, I hope I never have to coach that group. It's at any level of sports, it's any job. The people in the environment make for a great experience. I don't care what you're doing or where you are. And it's the same, same in our league. I've had the opportunity to work with unbelievable people and unbelievable players my whole career. So thankfully, my experience has always been high level from top to bottom, from a front office standpoint, and then the players I've had the opportunity to work with have been elite as well.
Absolutely. And then, your most recent job, being able to come home, be with the Los Angeles Lakers. Was this kind of a dream job for you in a sense of, being able, I'm sure you grew up watching the Lakers. Don't know if they were your favorite team growing up. I'm just assuming because we LA kids, right? And so what was that experience like, and kind of full circle coming back home?
Yeah, well, I watched more Sparks games than Lakers games growing up. My dad had season tickets to the Sparks. I loved the Sparks game. Like, I saw more of Lisa Leslie live than I did Shaq. Obviously, I watched the Lakers, but I had more connection to the Sparks organization because we were at all of the games. But obviously, coming back home at the end when I got the job was amazing. But to rewind, the only reason I even had this opportunity wasn't such a awesome experience. So I had 1 year left in Detroit on my contract. Towards the end of my third year, end of one season, I had one season left. Huge family mental break where a close family member, couple attempts at suicide, followed with my mom passing a year or two before that. And I felt that it was more important that I take a step away from coaching and attend to family. I'm gonna be able to find a job somewhere. If I'm meant to coach, I'm gonna coach. You get one family, and this particular individual, you only get one of them. So if he continued down the path that he was going, and I just felt that it was something I needed to do. Couple months left in the season, Coach Casey, super supportive of my decision to say, look, I appreciate everything that you've done. I understand I'm walking away from something that I love and that a lot of people would die for, but my foundation, process, and principles are built on that. This is just extra. Yeah. Coaching in the NBA doesn't define who I am. These individuals that I love and care about are going through something that we've tried to see if I could do both, and I couldn't. Moved back. I had enrolled in getting my clinical doctorate at the Professional School of Psychology. I did the interview process. I went to orientation. I was about to be a full-time student. 2 weeks before, again, remember I talked about the further you get from a situation, the story changes. I don't know exactly how much time before school was starting, but there was a gap before school was starting that I started having conversations with Dar. And I told myself when I left Detroit, I would only coach around the LA area for at least a year or two, just to get a feel for the support we needed to provide. And there was literally no team that I would have went to that wasn't LA. I wasn't even thinking NBA. I was going to be a full-time student, literally going to class, dissertation, all of that. And he called me, and over the course of a couple conversations, that opportunity emerged. But that opportunity doesn't even present itself if I don't feel strongly about the foundation of who I am. It wasn't a basketball. It wasn't a career decision. It was a family and a personal decision that led to ultimately what is you at home, and it's also with the Lakers, and you got Bron and Russ, and that was the byproduct. Yeah. But the steps leading up to that were things that we all can kind of take a lesson from. There's so many people that you see where they end up, and it's easy to glorify, like, man, he's or she is in this position, but literally everyone has a story. Everyone has something that has led them to the position that they're in, and I'm grateful that I made the decision, because in the moment, same way the decision to stop playing, everyone was like, what are you doing? To leave Detroit before the season was over with money left on the table for that next year, everyone was like, what are you doing? And I think the value of being in tune with yourself is, when you're more in tune with yourself and who you are, it's easier to listen to your intuition, because it's like, okay, I know that voice. I know when you come knocking, this is a decision that needs to be made, and trust in that. There's so many decisions in life. It really doesn't matter sometimes which decision you make. It's like, all right, whichever one you make it right. So I chose that family was most important. I'm going to make that decision right. And thankfully, it paid off. Dar gave me an unbelievable opportunity to work with this organization, Rob and the entire front office. And it was an unbelievable experience, both as a person, being from here, and then as a coach, being able to step into a winning championship or bust environment. I don't think you can ask more from an environment in terms of development, because if you can withstand a space where you have to perform, I think you can go anywhere else and be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, man. And big ups to you, man, for choosing family and having that character, like that integrity, and you are who you are in every space that you're at. And for me, it's like the way that God works is it brought you back. It's like, hey, you're being obedient to this. And so I'm gonna open this door for you, which is, almost the ultimate opportunity for a coach, right? And so it goes to show you, like, to really, like you said, listen to that intuition, that voice, you know, follow that thing inside of you, you know, for me, the Holy Spirit, like, you got to follow that because I've been in situations myself where I hear very clearly, do not do that.
Do it, man.
And I did it.
Right.
And it was like, oh my goodness,
Every
look what I
time.
walked into. And the other ones where I said, hey, do this. And it's like, okay, where's this gonna lead to? And I don't see it until it just recently happened where I had a situation, was one of the bigger decisions of my business. And I'm like, man, should I do this? And it was happening during COVID. And so it's like a weird time, but all I heard was, yes, do this. This is what you're supposed to do. And I almost regretted it, maybe for the last 2 years. I almost regretted this decision I made 5 years ago. And then just a month ago, I see why I made that decision. Just like, I'm like, this is why this has happened. It was setting something up for the future that is so important right now that, man, if I didn't listen to that voice, where would I be as a person? Where would these people who I work with be, and the people that we care for, all these kids we care for, where would they be if I didn't listen to that, you know, listen to God.
Absolutely. No, those decisions aren't easy, but comes with being an adult. That's why we started in the beginning. Being a human being is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. Decisions aren't easy. From what high school you gonna send your kid to, and it's like, okay, they saying they gonna move us here and get us an apartment, and they saying he gonna play varsity, and where am I gonna go? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But whichever one you choose, pour into that.
Yeah.
And only thing that's consistent in life is change.
Yeah.
Nothing is gonna be forever. Everything is gonna change at some point. And a big tenet for me in my holistic coaching philosophy is being flexible.
Yes.
Never break, but you gotta be able to bend. Got to be able to move and be flexible, whether it's with a player, with a coach you work with. You got to be able to be flexible.
100%. There's two things I want to say. One, if you're trying to figure out what to choose for high school, that's literally what I do. I help people make decisions in basketball. So y'all holler at me if y'all need that help. Me and the basketball firm. Two, just talking about being able to be flexible. Something I heard for my marriage. Right, so I've been married 11 years. Me and my wife have, I think, a very amazing marriage. Like, literally, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
High level.
And when we were doing marriage counseling, my pastor told me, my wife was young. She was 23 when we got married, so fairly young. And she said, she's going to change. He said, the biggest mistake you can make is thinking she's going to be exactly who she is now in 5 years. He said, let her be her. Let her develop, let her change, and you support every move she makes. Like, don't let her do anything crazy. She wasn't crazy anyway. My wife is laid back. But that was the best advice I took, because I saw my friends who we're all married at the same time, and their wives or their husbands started to change. And that's what ultimately caused the divorce. It's because they weren't ready for that maturity. She's maturing. So my wife, you know, got a couple extra tattoos, couple extra piercings, wanted to go to Vegas with her friends still. And I was like, cool. I just let it happen. And I think that's why we're so close, though, is that I want to support her in her life and the decisions she makes. She does it for me. It ain't always easy, especially since having kids. Man, y'all pray about having kids. Love
Makes
them,
you stronger, man.
Man, for sure.
No, that's awesome.
For sure. So that flexibility carries to every area in life, like you're talking about. That's really good advice. Really good advice.
Appreciate it.
All right. I want to be an NBA coach. What do I do?
I think if you lined up every coach that's ever been in the NBA, we just lined them up and you asked each one, okay, how'd you get here? There wouldn't be one thing that was in common. So that's my. There wouldn't be one.
Yeah.
There's no one path.
Yeah.
In general, in terms of how to ever elevate in any space, bring value to the space that you're in.
Yes.
Maximize the space that you're in. I know it could say networking, could be go over here, but I don't have the answers. I wish I had the answers.
You have the answer. You just gave the answer.
Yeah.
It's maximize the space you're in. I think that's it. It's our ability to navigate life, and people because we're, basketball's so glorified just in pop culture, right? And Russell Westbrook forever. You knew these people. I've been in the gym with players that people are like, man, Todd is doing this. And I'm like, yeah, I just work hard though. Like it's not crazy to me because I work so hard and I feel like this work pays off. You reap what you sow. It's what you were talking about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just reaping what I'm sowing. I've just put so much work into this, rebounding for free for 8 years to get a real opportunity to train somebody who's a pro, which wasn't even NBA pros at first. And then that turning into pre-draft, training players who were borderline second round picks. And I did terrible. None of them got picked. And then transitioning into, because I was there, I ran into Chris Johnson. And he takes my game to another level, just understanding this thing. And then a year later, I'm in the gym just around Clutch Sports because we're doing their pre-draft. And then this, I go hard at doing podcasting. I ain't made, wait, how much money we made off this? $7? $7. We made $7.
Come on now,
been doing this.
Hey,
it's profit. You know what I'm talking about? It's profit. But in a year, I've been going hard at this to be sitting here with people like you. Like, it's because I just put the effort in. So and I ask you that to encourage people because a lot of people want to be in your seat. I think you said all those people have gotten there differently, but I think you guys, all NBA coaches, have one thing about them is that your level of respect for the game and the professionalism that comes with that, you have to have a certain level of that stepping into it.
In respect to the field, I would be mindful of us not putting NBA coach not that we are, NBA coach is more valuable than fifth grade coach because I have conversations with my third grade coach after some of our NBA games, and the way that he breaks down and dissects every single possession, he could easily have called the game on ESPN. He could have easily been a head coach on the sidelines, but the value in my third grade coach or my eighth grade coach or my high school coach, a lot of these coaches are basketball savants, basketball geniuses. Just because the logo says high school basketball versus NBA basketball, that doesn't mean, just because you're in this NBA slot doesn't mean that the value of who you are as a coach, because we need youth coaches.
Yes.
We need them.
Speak on it.
In the worst way. And we need them at a high level. And not to deter anyone from trying to reach that NBA space, but there's so much value in the groundwork. It's like, okay, we can't have everybody just painting the outside of the Lamborghini. Like the people that are building the parts and putting the parts together and deciding what handle goes on the door and which steering wheel we're going to use and like, all right, how are these brakes going to function? If everybody's just trying to paint and detail the car and drive it, that's dangerous for us from a safety standpoint. An analogy of those people that are doing the groundwork of our game are almost more valuable than we are, because the next generation, once we get them, they've already built the foundation. Now we can tweak it, we add, obviously we can take it to another level, but the foundation of anything, house, car, marriage, family, community, the foundation will always be more valuable than the decorations.
No, I love that. I love that. And we have a post right now that's kind of going crazy where I talk about being certified, coaches having a certification in an education process, right? And the people who disagree with me, and we're having great conversations, is like, most of the youth is volunteer work and all these things. And I'm like, yes, I'm not saying don't go to your local YMCA and volunteer, but I'm also saying don't go start an AAU team and try to go compete at a high level and just get athletes and throw them out there and play. Actually teach them the game of basketball. There's fundamentals, a foundation that needs to be set. Just like any career, anything you do, kids need to have a certain level of information before they go and play. I don't put my daughter in, she's 5. Mom, oh, you're gonna put her in this league and that league? I'm like, she don't even know the rules. I need to go develop her skill set and teach her before I go throw her out there And like she could do it for exercise and all that, but I know who I am. Like I ain't about to put her on no basketball court and she don't know what she's doing. I'm gonna be mad at myself. So teaching that skill set and learning before you get your degree, before you perform surgery, you got to learn something. And people, oh, being a doctor is not like basketball, but man, it is. Like there's basketball people that make more than surgeons.
No, I agree. There's so much value in just being able to provide some type of structure to the teaching. I always, again, my environment of being able to watch my dad as a teacher and how he taught, even when he was a substitute teacher, just the way that he engaged in students, how he organized, how he put together a lesson plan, how he graded papers, like just that whole structure of teaching and informing young people. I know there's a lot of places in Europe to be able to coach, like you have to go through a certain process, and I'm so grateful for my journey as a player because I got to study how to coach from really good coaches. And even in my years of playing, I would still conduct workouts with players, and I would always have conversations with coaches when I played. But the value that I could grow and that we all could extract from there being a process, especially in our youth spaces, is extremely important. And that's why I continue to, how much information can I get? Like that was my vision of getting a master's in psychology is, okay, we understand that the athlete is dealing with a lot. We get that. We also understand that it's not going to change with the increase of social media influence and impact on human on people. So how can I help players in both fronts? Well, let me try to gain as much sports psych information as possible and see can I pour that into not just myself but our coaching staff, and then that bleeds over into the players, and then that may bleed over into a locker room 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road where athletes are able to compete and perform at the highest level while also being mentally sane and healthy.
Yes.
Because you don't have to choose. You don't have to choose mental chaos and performance or mental stability and lack of performance. Like, no, you can have both. And how do we build our game out to where the coach also can have that, because it's volatile. A couple years and you're losing a job and coaches are having to move their families all over the place and coaches are making $10-15 million. So how do we really converge and combine those two aspects is extremely important. But an example of what happens when you implement further and higher education into teaching in the sport.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the future. That's the prototype for the next generation of coaches. Like you're on it, and you're the catalyst for it almost. Like, I don't know if I haven't heard of any other assistant coaches doing that. Not like I know every assistant coach, but that's I think that's so high level to, like you said, having the ability to have a person perform at the highest mental level while also being a super athlete. It's we've seen them, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen, well, I think we've seen players who have that. Right, you can kind of tell what players kind of have their personal life at least peaceful enough for them to be able to operate at the highest level on the court for a long period of time, man. We're gonna segment over to my Rushmore, okay?
Yeah.
Your top 4 underdeveloped skills in basketball. Top 4 underdeveloped skills.
Yeah, underrated or undeveloped?
Underrated. Top 4 underrated skills, excuse me.
Top 4 most underrated skills, especially just like watching the youth space. I think just baseline discipline, like just the ability to walk into the gym, have their shoes and someone else didn't bring them, put them on and get on the court and start working on something before coach tells them. I would say discipline, competitiveness, just the ability to say, okay.
Just go back to competitive.
Okay. Second would be competitiveness. Just having that baseline ability to say, you're not going to score on me. They're not going to score on us. That loose ball, we both have the opportunity to get it. I'm going to get it. discipline, competitiveness. I would even throw the third one would just be basic perception and action. Like, can you perceive space and understand where's the shift, where's the help coming from, and what play should I make? And then the last one, I would say defensive physicality. I don't feel a lot of players naturally want to play defense, which is okay. The offensive players are just really elite. But baseline defensive physicality can really set the tone for an entire game at all levels.
Yep.
Now, obviously, you're going to go against an offensive player, and better offense is going to beat great defense. But if we can really hone in on that defensive physicality, the perception and action, and just building out decision making and just the variability that the game presents, competition at the highest level, and just day-to-day discipline, sleep, eating, getting to the gym, going somewhere and working on your game by yourself, emotional discipline of the ref makes a call and you're not trying to show up the ref every time, emotional discipline of coach subs you out and now you have to show to the world that you're upset. You miss a shot and you got to show the world that you should have made it. Like, discipline both physically and mentally.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Amazing four. My four, it's in line with what you're talking about. I call it just self-responsibility. Like, all those things is like, no, this is me. I can control my reaction to what just happened in the game. I can control if the coach doesn't like me, and it's because I faced it and I failed. When my coach came at me in college and told me I was good for setting screens and playing defense, I just listened. And there was no, even though I kept working and doing all these things, I let him I allowed myself to end my career from that pretty much. It's because I didn't have someone telling me these things and like how to overcome it. I kept on training and working, but I wasn't connected in the right places. I wasn't performing like I should. And so that's just a big thing for me, is like, stop blaming other people.
Yeah.
Stop blaming other people. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? And so that responsibility is super important. Two, for me, is on-ball defense. I think there's a lot of gimmicks and things you can do now to hide that you cannot. I used to have to like play one-on-one for 5 seconds, and they had the ability to attack the basket, but I had to keep them in a box. I don't know if you remember this drill back in the day on the wing. Like, if they get anywhere near the paint, it's over. I had to lock people up for 5, and these are like Division I players. This is in junior college, like, and so I take a lot of pride in that on-ball defense, and yeah, man, like, y'all gotta know how to lock up. You have to.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, overall IQ, I think you were saying it, just being able to read plays and understand actions is a big thing. And more so, I'm big on, I think you know something if you can teach it. And so I think coaches knowing that and teaching their players, and then allowing their players to recite it back to them and teach it back, and not just, kids can look at something and do it immediately. They know how to copy actions because we're built on skill drills now. But can they explain why they're making a move, explain why this action works, why the man is, why are you backdoor cutting on this, and just little details like that. I think we're missing that. And then another is, competitiveness. You said it, man. Like, I still to this day, man, I get on the court. I don't care who you are, NBA All-Star or a 5-year-old. Man, I'm competing, man. I don't let 5-year-olds score on me. I don't care. I'm just in between that rectangle, man. That's, like you said, a place where I could release my emotions, and man, that's where I do it at. So I will dunk on you and your kid and talk about it. And
what it is, respectfully. Like,
respectfully, yeah. And then when you come off the court, guess what? I'm going to help you do whatever you need to do in your life, and I'm going to be your best friend. But on that court, I don't care who you are. I'm going to be a dog. I'm going to be a dog. And yeah, man. And I appreciate that. All right, next segment is called Fix the Net. Okay, so, man, our hoop's upstairs. All right. fix the net. There's usually a hoop here,
Okay.
and then with the net up, when the net gets stuck after you make a swish, and you get to
somebody-
fix the net. So we are all going to imagine that. Everybody close your eyes and imagine the net up. All right. So misconception about basketball or yourself that you want to make straight, or both.
Misconception about basketball. Is that there's one way to do it. There's so many different ways to coach, so many different ways to play, so many different styles, offensively, defensively. Should you foul up three? Should you not foul? There's a variety of ways, and there is no right way. I think the goal as a coach or player is, how do I find what's right for that situation? Because something that worked yesterday may not work today. And if I can keep an open perspective and an open mind that there is no right one way, then I'll always be able to adapt and adjust to what may provide me success today. Because tomorrow could be a different challenge and a different group of players in a different situation where I used to think one thing, but today this is a different situation, and I have to go into, again, my diversified skill set and toolbox and pull out something else and utilize it. So just this misconception that there's just one way to do things. I think the other one could be just that you know a lot. Like, I literally know nothing. Every single coach I've ever played for, every conversation I've had about the sport, I've learned something. So if I'm always learning something, how much did I really know? And I think if we can shift the perspective of thinking that, like, oh, I'm in this position and I got all the, it's like we know little to nothing. And what that does for you when you recognize you know little to nothing is it allows you to gain a little bit more everywhere that you go and every place and person that you touch in the game.
I haven't felt this humbled in a long time. I needed to hear that.
Right.
I appreciate that, for real. I struggle with that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an absolute person. I speak in absolutes. I actually am very open-minded, but people are offended almost by how absolute I say things.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of, like, I know little to nothing. I think that's going to help me with my communication about certain things. I know some places I have to speak like that because I like to speak to people's soul.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Karina. She knows.
Yeah.
I like to speak to people's soul, so I do say things very affirmatively.
Yeah.
But I like that in especially in a coaching perspective and just a life perspective. Like, I know little to nothing. And so thank you, man, for the humility
absolutely.
today too, man. You got.
Appreciate you.
We just going. This is your show now, so awesome. And so this is where we flip the script. This This is your show actually now. 2 questions for me. Could be about anything in the world. Doesn't have to be basketball related.
What have you done that was an act of pouring into yourself that you felt paid off the most long term?
The act that I poured most into myself that paid off long term. During COVID, this is fresh on my mind. I just was talking to a player about this. During COVID, I read 37 books. That was my pastime, and they were all John Maxwell books focused on leadership. And it my mindset, like you said, what I consumed, man, when I pour it out, like, I want to be the best leader, and I blame everything on leadership, and hold myself accountable to that leadership because, man, those 37 books, they were pretty much repeating the same things over and over, just in different ways, in different situations, but it was just a crash course. As my business was going from another level. I went from, COVID happened, so in our program we had 36 kids. That next year I had 125. And I single-handedly, I give glory to God first and foremost, and that my leadership grew, so my influence grew. And that's all I focus on now is how do I develop my leadership. I'm always listening to an audio book or reading something about leadership and how to develop it and practicing those with the people, my team and the people I work with, to the kids that I work with. Is like, man, how are you being a leader? And that time reading those books, is waking up before my family woke up. I have my devotion time, and then I would just read, man.
Yeah, wow.
And it was a direct correlation to my mindset. Yeah.
Then the second one, what's your genius? What do you feel your genius is?
My genius is seeing the best in everybody and knowing how to, giving them a blueprint to like unlocking it. I can literally sit here and talk to anybody, and I think one of my gifts is discernment, like to see the goodness in you and say, hey, let's get there. That's why I work in player development. I see a kid where a coach is like, oh, he won't be anything, and I'm like, oh no, he's going to college. Watch this. And I do it to people. Like me and Karina were just talking about this earlier. Like the plan that she had a year ago, I thought it was going to take like 5 years. It's already happened. She's surpassed what she thought it would be. Like all the things that she wanted. I'm about to tell her business, so I can tell her so she doesn't like her go. She always wanted to work with D-Wade, and it happened. We have a person that she admires who all of a sudden their kid is in my program now, and so we're going to be connected to that person and their creativeness and their genius. But we sat down for days and mapped out, hey, this is what we have to do. And it's not only happened exactly like we said it, is like she's thinking things now and they're just happening. And
it's no more powerful than a vision followed by the work. Like it's hard not to win at some point. Like it's just, I have a vision of what I want, I'm working towards it, and I'm flexible to say like, all right, if it doesn't happen this way, I'll go over here. All right, if it doesn't, but we're still moving forward progressively. And she's definitely a visionary and an executor of what she sees and believes, which is kudos to her. And obviously all the things she's doing and what you guys are doing is when good people are pouring into other individuals, I'm a firm believer that good things happen to good people, especially when you work hard and you're talented.
Yeah.
Like if you just add all of the things together, it's like, okay, how could you not be successful?
Yep. Absolutely.
So nah.
Yep.
How many episodes total has it been?
We're at like 56. I think this is 56 or 57 right now. We just been going every week. We've not missed a week. We don't plan on it. We both getting really busy. We love this is the heartbeat of everything else that we're trying to do and build out. It's been so much, man, to be talking to an NBA coach in the middle of, on May 31st. It's just like crazy to me, man. Like the people who have sat in that chair and are requested to be on this show just lets me know that I'm doing something I'm supposed to do. And I don't have, the gain I have in all this is that's what I love. I love encouraging people. Like, I need your book done. I need to know how we can, what you are doing with, everyone has a story, how to initiate that in programs like mine, where I have a bunch of young kids who need to know that it's okay to have mental wellness. Like, they don't know that. They don't. They struggle through these things, and have a curriculum that's focused on student athletes and basketball players specifically. I promise you could write it up in a day probably because of your gift, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I want to see that from you. Like, we can just hand out to people and send out to people to really impact. This is it, man. It's been, when you walk in your purpose and you see a vision and you just work, you show up. Just show up. Man, I tell kids this. We do 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. workout. Just show up.
Yeah, I'll do the rest.
Don't just show up. That's all I need you to do is wake up and get here. And you're doing more than 99% of people by just waking up and showing up to the 5:30 a.m. workout consistently. I don't need you to come once a week. Nah. That man wakes up every day, every single day, and just gets to the gym. He don't complain. He don't say nothing. He be half asleep. But he here. Yeah. And it's showing, it's showing. So. And so, we're adding a segment to the show just for JD. We have some special guests here. And they're supposed to ask some questions for some reflection on the show. So I'll let JD kind of take this.
No, I just wanted to see what you guys thought. Any questions you may have, whether it's about something currently, future, you, whatever.
I got a question. Like, what was like the biggest transition from like for levels, like just saying like college to NBA or like high school to college? Like, what was like one of the biggest things that you had to adjust to or change to, or like what helped you get through it?
As a player or coaching?
As a player.
Player. Yeah, so as a player, I would say the physicality. I think the more our youth athletes can really develop their body and become really good movers. What I mean moving is not just about bulk strength all the time, even though I think strength is extremely important, but how healthy are you? Like we talked earlier about just playing multiple sports. Like, can we get players to play multiple sports to diversify their movements so that they're not pounding on the same joints, the same movement from 8 years old to 20 years old, and then just overall strength. I think that's the biggest difference maker. The strength, the size of players, each level you rise, and then probably the ability to shoot. Like, can you be extremely strong, mobile, and healthy, and then can you continue to develop the ability to make an open shot? I think changes the importance of those skill sets. Each level changes and increases. As a coach, I honestly think it's all the same from a foundation. Coach and develop the whole person, not just the athlete. Continue to learn and extract as much information to help your team or help the head coach you work for. That approach doesn't change. The information that's utilized changes depending on who's on that team and the situation of that organization. But that day-to-day process, it doesn't really change. It's kind of the anchor, and then again, all of the decorations that gets adjusted based off of what's needed for that circumstance.
You got one, Jay Shaw?
About the video game is like, let's say I wanted to like get rid of it and like focus on basketball. Like, what do you think about that?
To be fully transparent, I think a lot of the players in our league play video games all the time. I think with anything it's balance, right? Like, you probably can feel when it's like, okay, I was supposed to leave 10 minutes ago, but I felt I had to play one more. Like, once it becomes something that's interfering with the priorities, then okay, we gotta adjust. But if it's something that you do that you feel is in a controlled space, you're not out terrorizing the streets, there's a lot of other things that you can be doing. And to be honest, a lot of players are able to study our league from the game because you know players on every team, you know the strengths and the weaknesses. So how do you use the game? And is there balance? Like, is there a diversification in where that free time is spent? Because they play in the game too. So I would be lying if I said that players at a high level don't play video games. But it does impact your cognition. Like, if you're doing this hours and hours all day, and then now you have to react and read situations, it's going to impact you. So just balance, finding that safe balance, and challenge yourself to say, all right, I'm not playing at all this weekend. And can you do that? Can you do it a whole day where I don't play today? Just so that you have a feel, am I in control, or is this video game got me in control where I have to have it? But I would just say overall balance. And again, we started with giving yourself grace. You're a kid. Video games is a part of being a kid. Finding that balance is a part of being a young man. Being a man is establishing, these are my boundaries. This is what I am going to do for how long, and I'm done with it here. That's just the progression of life. So you're at the right stage. Good question.
We're at a new segment called Karina's Question. Yeah, Karina, I know you have a question. She's a genius behind these kind of things. So, question for JD.
I love the spotlight. I fucking love it.
Why did you decide to get your master's after so much success already? Like, what made you do that? Because it's not something, you didn't pivot completely from your career.
Yeah.
It's something that adds on. But what made you, because that's something that you need a lot of discipline in, between studying, homework, learning and everything plus a career, like what made you feel that you could add that on?
Few factors. One, never being satisfied like with where you are and knowing that, like I mentioned, I know little to nothing. So anytime I can add, that's better for me. Two, I started to feel more and more the gap between the athlete and the help that was needed. And instead of complaining about it and having conversations about the gap, it's like, all right, get the information to fill the gap so that I can step in and be able to create an open space because I'm an assistant coach, but I'm also able to be aware of different mental skill sets that a player might need, different traumas just in our day-to-day conversation that may come up, and I'm able to, maybe I can't help them, but at least I can suggest to our mental health professional that this athlete may need some support, or I can converse to the athlete in a manner that he can digest of ways that he maybe can feel supported. And then let's see, yeah, I would say those are the two main ones. Never really being satisfied, and then if there's a gap to fill, we need to fill it, and having the discernment that this next group, this social media, because we haven't really seen the impact of social media fully. We're slowly seeing it, but this next 4 or 5 drafts of athlete who's been on Instagram their whole life and who's been followed their whole life, there's going to be some residual effects that our league has to be prepared for, and why not be the person who's equipped with the skill sets to help them manage those things so that they can ultimately maximize what pays all of us, which is performing at the highest level on the floor.
Yeah, that's dope. Ahead of his time, Mr. JD DuBois. Man, appreciate you being on the show, my brother.
Thank you.
We got a 24-second shot clock. Let the people know where they can find you, or any
Yep.
message that you have right to your camera.
Yeah, so JD DuBois, you can find me on Instagram at JD Sports Academy, and then Everyone Has a Story @ Everyone Has a Story is our nonprofit organization where we're really looking to converge psychoeducation, mental health and wellness, and sport, and normalizing the conversation. And at the end of the day, like, we all have a journey, we all have a path that we're taking in life, and just a reminder that on a day-to-day basis, everyone has a story, but make sure you're the author of yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Yes, indeed.